Hey, podcast listeners. Thanks for joining us for another special episode. This week, I've got Zach Smith, works alongside me here at Midwest Family Lending, son to Eric Smith, who was on our special episode a few weeks ago. And Zach is here to share his own side of the story. So thanks for joining us, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, for those that didn't hear your dad's story, tell us tell us your HD story. I mean, your story probably started off a little bit different than your dad. So, tell us how his situation went through your own eyes.
Yeah, so kind of starting out, I think my dad may have touched on this a little bit in his podcast, was just when we were at like Christmas or family gatherings, we noticed his brother was doing weird things with his hands. It was almost more like a indecisiveness. He would go to grab a ketchup bottle, but instead of grabbing the ketchup bottle, he'd like go like reach for it and then almost like he was thinking about it, then would grab it. And on the car ride home, we're like, what the heck is going on? That's weird. But also, we're kind of like a joking family and stuff. So we were also cracking jokes, be like, what the heck is this? And then I think it wasn't until like a couple years later that we found out that it was Huntington's disease. And we're like, oh, all that, I guess, tracks out and makes sense. So sorry for kind of joking around about it, but that's kind of serious. And so little things like that just kind of was like, maybe we shouldn't joke about this stuff anymore. Maybe take a deeper dive into some education and that sort of stuff. So I'd say that's probably the first real experience that I've had with it and seen kind of what was going on and what it was.
So, was there any indication to you that this could be a hereditary thing from the
At the
beginning?
time, no. We were just kind of still new and fresh and trying to figure out what the heck was going on because like you said, he had gone to many different doctors and it took going to many specialists to even find out what was actually wrong with him.
And I guess, are you super close with that uncle? Did you see him quite frequently to know what was going on here?
Not super close. That one lived out in Omaha, so really only saw them during family events and Christmas and things like that. But relatively close, as I'd say, as close as you could probably be as someone living in a different state or 2 hours away. So yeah,
So then you didn't see him every day. So therefore, the progression of symptoms was probably more evident for you between seeing him at Thanksgiving and then not seeing him again until Christmas and then maybe not till 4th of July after that. So how did that progression look from your perspective? Did it seem like it was going really quickly? Did it seem like nothing really was changing from time to time? Do you remember?
yeah, I'd say I probably agree with you with the it seemed to come on more quickly just for that aspect of you're not seeing it every day, so maybe the little things don't add up and then when you do see it or come across them, it's evident. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's very much as if someone started a painting and you were there at the start, and then you got to see the middle and the end, but you didn't see any of the leading up to it.
Right. Yeah, and one of the things that we talked about with your dad on the show was about all of the education that you as a family went through as you guys were learning about what this is and learning about the fact that it is a hereditary disease. Kind of take me back to that, going through that stuff. I know your dad said you and your brothers were involved in that from the beginning. Were you in Was it really from the beginning, the first day they were like, hey, we're going to go get some education and go learn about this, we want everybody to go with us? Or was it, my mom and I are going to go check it out, shoot, you know what, you guys better learn about this too, come on over with us?
Yeah, I think it was probably more so that it was, hey, let's get, as in, I'm taking a role on as my parents right now. Let's have us get the information, learn about it, and then they did that pretty quickly. And then was very much, hey, let's bring the kids involved. They need to kind of understand what's going on, not just for the aspect of it being hereditary and there could be at risk, but more just for the aspect of hey, here's what's going on with your uncle. And if things seem weird, this could be why. Like if you ask him a question and he doesn't answer right away and it takes him 5 seconds to answer your question, this is what's going on. So don't ask your question, be like, hey Mark, how's it going? And then don't get an answer. So then be like, okay, cool, Mark, whatever. Just kind of be like, hey Mark, how's it going? And then sit back and let him answer. So it's just little things like that. So that was nice because it's, hey, let's learn this so you know how to communicate effectively with them and not think, oh, they're just ignoring you or they're just being slow or don't want to answer sort of stuff.
So clearly, you already had seen the symptoms in your uncle before you got that education. Now you get the education piece. You're sitting there. Things are probably starting to click in your mind of, oh, that makes sense. They just told us that happened, so therefore that's why I kind of joked around that Mark wasn't answering right away, and actually I kind of feel bad now. Like, were there other things that came to mind as you guys were sitting through those classes? Like, oh, you know what, that totally makes sense now.
One other experience off the top of my head that before we knew anything about HD was we were all in Mark's truck. I think it was me, his son, and my older brother Jake. And Mark was driving, and we were going down Army Post Road, and we're coming up to a stoplight, and the stoplight turned yellow. And we're far away enough to be like, okay, you're going to need to slow down. You're not making the light. But he just keeps going, and then it turned red. And then we're sitting there like, okay, are you going to stop? And he kept getting closer. Then he slammed on the brakes. And then again, we're joking, family, be like, geez, Mark, what are you doing? Got to pay attention. Stop looking at the dog across the street, or some jokes around those lines. And then come to find out, as they're talking about these things in these education programs, you're like, holy crap, that was probably HD and he probably shouldn't be driving anymore. And luckily no one was really in front of us or wasn't a busy street to where that could have been a really bad accident. So learning those things have been helpful and seeing that kind of progression. So then when it does come to, hey, Eric might be at this stage in life, they'll be easier to kind of spot moving forward so that he's not in a dangerous position. But as he said in your podcast, he's the driver. So that one might, if we ever get there, that one might be a tough one to take from him.
Yeah. So take me a little bit further down that path. Going through the education with your parents, did you think my dad probably has this, or were you pretty confident that, you know what, there's no way? I'm in denial at this point. I don't think my dad has it. They can say it's hereditary, but he hasn't shown any signs, so I think he's probably going to be fine.
Yeah, at first, I don't think it really hit on it being hereditary, and it was very much, shoot, what's going on with Mark and Bill? Let's figure out what's going on there. And then as things progressed and got more into it, it was one of those where, yes, everyone has a 50-50 chance of getting it, or if it runs in their family, each child has an individual 50-50 chance of getting it. But then I've kind of always been a math guy. I was like, well, even though every time's 50-50, the chances of every child of this 5-child family, every child getting it, this is probably going to sound terrible, each sibling of my dad's that has it, technically the probability is a little bit more in his favor of not having it, even though each individual person has 50-50 chance, if that kind of makes sense.
It's like saying you're going to flip a quarter 5 times and getting heads all 5 times. It's unlikely you're going to get heads every single time. Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I was with it. I was like, 2 of the 5 have it. Well, there's no way all 5 are going to have it. And turns out most likely all 5 do have it. And I don't think it really hit home of, yeah, you could possibly have this until they came and told us, this is, your dad's got this. But also I try to see the brighter side of things. And so I'm always optimistic. And with that thought process of, oh, does he have it? Well, I'm always going to assume he does it until you tell me otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to remind people, if you haven't listened to Eric's episode, go back to, I believe it's episode 46 and listen to that. And a lot of this is going to make more sense with what Zach's talking about. But Zach, I guess, what was going through your mind then when your dad brings you in and says, hey, boys, we need you all to come over to the house. No girlfriends, no nothing. We just need you all to come over. And again, being a joking family, I can only assume what was going through your minds and the jokes and stuff that were being cracked. But yeah, how tell me about that sitting at the table and conversation.
Yes, obviously our hairs kind of stand up whenever they're like, or hairs in the back of your neck stand up whenever they're like, hey, we need you, and these people aren't invited. And you're like, oh, okay, this is serious. What's going on? And then get there, and the mood was a little bit somber, and it was just kind of like, this isn't normal. What's going on? So then we have our serious talk, and they tell you, and you're just kind of like, shoot, well, that sucks. But then it's also, well, there's not much we can really do about it. All we can do is really move forward and prepare for things, basically prepare for the worst case scenario. So it is an initial slap in the face. Is kind of like a woes me for a little bit there. But then throughout the dinner, it was more of a hey, now we know, let's do what we can for it, but also we're lucky enough to where he's not showing symptoms or anything now to where we can just continue on with life, because you can still live a normal life and go throughout life. It's just taking the precautions to so you're ready when symptoms and things do come on.
So, how has seeing the progression of symptoms with your uncle's HD and then now knowing that your dad has that gene, how has that impacted how you view your future?
I would say, at least from the start, compared to some of the things other people or other people's situations, it seems like theirs have kind of come on a little bit later in life. So that's kind of a good thing. It's really, I feel, allowed me and my family to kind of hone in on, we're going to look for these specific signs. We're going to, how my dad was saying, his brother was saying hot all the time, seeing if, hey, Eric starts doing something or vocalizing something like that, maybe that's it. Don't necessarily want to live in that mindset all the time of the this is it, it's coming, but just clocking it in the back of your head and being like, okay, he's kind of done this a little while. We'll see if this kind of continues and reconvene later on. But also, it's an early stage thing, so not necessarily the end of the world. But yeah, so it's just being able to hone in on taking what was weird movements or little quirks, I guess, that both Mark and Bill had, and I guess eventually Becky, his other sister, that had it. Just taking all those and basically just looking out for those signs, so then when it does happen, we as a family can make decisions for moving forward. I don't know if that is going to ultimately end up being like more conversations with just mom and being like, hey, we're kind of noticing these things. Because even if it is something where it's like things might be starting, it may not be in the best interest of Eric or to know, hey, it's starting. That could hurt his mental health and things like that. So it may be conversations with Jody, my mom, behind the scenes, or once things start progressing more, maybe including my dad into it. But then also, I I don't know. It's kind of all over the place, but that's kind of where my mind goes. Is I would imagine there'd be more conversations with mom, and then if she thinks it's time to kind of bring some things up to him, she would be the one doing that.
Well, and I want to point out too, you mentioned that your dad doesn't have the symptoms yet or isn't showing any signs at this point. As we've learned through the education, just, as Midwest Family Lending Cares program, we're talking about learning more about HD so we can support you guys. One of the things that we've learned is that typically when someone has the gene that's repetitive, and there's repeats more than others, and therefore that's why they have the Huntington's disease. Typically, they start to show those symptoms in the 30s and 40s, and your dad's now well beyond that. He's in his mid 50s. He's not showing the symptoms yet. And so you mentioned something about, he's not showing those signs yet. So it kind of is, it's almost promising, right? I mean, he's still living a full life. He's still doing around his day to day. He's still the same Eric. And so I think that's really important to point out. And your dad mentioned it too when he was doing his episode that, pretty much everybody in the family didn't start having their symptoms until later in life. And so him getting his repeat number, I believe he said it was right at 40, which is the number for HD. And anything higher than that means it's repeating more. And that also then means that it's more likely to start showing signs earlier. So the fact that it is right at 40 means he's got the gene. It just, if he lives long enough, he might have the symptoms. He might not live that long, or, it might not come into his life until he's late stage of his life as it is. So I think that's really promising, and to see your dad's always upbeat and stuff. And I'm sure that's hope. It gives you hope. It's exciting for you because you and your brothers, if you guys do ever get tested and you do find out you have it, you then have the ability to say, well, if we get it, then maybe we're not going to get it until we're 80 years old. So I can still have a full life. How has learning about Huntington's impacted your outlook on life, though? And especially You've told me that you originally wanted to go to school, I think, for 20 years or something for college, just some ridiculous amount.
Yeah, so originally when they told me, I believe I was in college and I was thinking about being a veterinarian. And if I was going to go down that route, I would have wanted to specialize in like orthopedic surgeries and stuff, which I believe requires even more schooling than that, than the typical veterinarian. Um,
Which I think we need to pause right there and just you talk about being a jokester here. The fact that it takes more schooling to be a veterinarian orthodontist than it does for a human orthodontist
no,
or a
orthopedic.
orthopedic.
So
Okay.
yeah, so like ACL tears and ligaments and things like that.
But the same thing can be true. It takes more schooling for you to do that on a snake than it does for an orthopedist to do something to me as a human. Is that right?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea the human side.
I think that's what you had kind of explained. I was like,
No, well, I meant like compared to veterinarian who doesn't do like
okay, okay.
orthopedic surgeries or things like that. So I think you do your undergrad, then you have 4 years of vet school, and then I think if you want to do orthopedic surgeries and things like that, you would then have to continue to go uh, to school for. At the time, I think it was like an additional 2 to 3 years, but don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. Times have changed since then. But
Okay,
yeah,
fair
so
enough. So you're not saying you have to take extra schooling for an animal. I was like, well, I
no,
mean, animals are important, but
yeah,
come on, people, come on.
yeah. I'm sure the human field probably has many more restrictions and it's quite longer.
So back to your plan. So you decided another 3 years in school just wasn't really for you then?
Yeah, so what happened was I graduated with in my undergrad in the fall semester. So spring semester I didn't have anything to do. I knew my buddy had interned down at Blank Park Zoo and he was like, dude, it's great. You should just give it a shot. So I interned down there during spring semester as a part-time internship. And then just to give you a little bit of backstory to understand my thought process here, a lot of zookeepers spend all of college traveling to different locations, doing unpaid internships throughout college. And then after they graduate, hopefully they can get a seasonal position somewhere in the country. And then ultimately, after a couple seasonal positions, hopefully they can get a full time position at some zoo. So it's really a hard field to kind of get into. So just keep that in mind. But so going back to, I did my internship. It was just a part-time internship. The supervisor knew I was still, hey, I'm going to go to vet school. This is what I'm going to do. And he's like, well, our seasonal keeper's leaving. We'd like to offer you the position. I was like, okay, I could do this for 6 more months, but I'm still going to do the stuff for vet school. Finish that part time seasonal position. 6 months is coming to an end, and the zoo decided to rework the teams around and left essentially two open positions that I've been doing the past 6 months now as a full time permanent position. And who is going to be the new supervisor was like, hey, I'm going to do what I can to just keep you on full time if you want to do that. So it was a little bit of, hey, is the universe just telling me just do zookeeping stuff? And so I had to weigh the options of, okay, I could be a zookeeper, maybe not exactly what I was hoping to be able to do, but I get just as much joy as I did as I had previous experience at a vet clinic. What would I be more upset with if this were to happen? Just being a zookeeper or go to school for many more years, become a veterinarian, and then once you start to establish good clientele or get into the thick of it, have Huntington's disease start up. And realistically, once you start showing any symptom of Huntington's disease, you probably can't be a veterinarian and orthopedic surgeon, let alone for that. So I was decided, you know what? I'll just ditch the vet route because that would really suck to get all this extra debt and be a veterinarian for maybe 3 to 8 years with the possibility of Huntington's disease coming on. Because, like you said, they say between 30 and 40. And then, yeah, then not being able to work. And it would just set everything up in a really bad spot, being in all that debt, the time I took to do it, and then not to be able to enjoy the aspect of actually doing it. And at the time, I was basically engaged, so I also didn't want to set that person up for failure either with, hey, we're not going to really have anything possibly in retirement set up. We're going to have a whole bunch more debt we're going to have to pay. So it just didn't make much sense. And I thought the universe was saying, hey, do zookeeping stuff.
Awesome. All right. So, have you thought about getting tested yourself, or are you just going to take a wait and see approach for now?
Pretty much a wait and see approach for now. Really, I'm the type of person I know if I get that result, any tremor, any bad mental funk I get into, everyone goes through a couple days or a week of just not mentally in a good spot. Anything like that, I would automatically be like, oh my God, it's starting. I can't deal with this. And I don't really plan on having kids. So if I were to change my mind on that stance, I would definitely get tested because I would want to know, hey, is it maybe ethical for me to even have a child, knowing that potential's there? And if it were to come out that I do had HD or was gene positive, maybe we would look more into fostering or things like that versus trying to have your own child. So right now I'm not going to get tested. I just don't think I can handle that mentally, and without the need for the not having a kid. It's just kind of, well, I could walk out the door and die in a car crash on the way to work. What's the point of knowing, hey, in a few years or 10, 20 years, my brain could start just deteriorating. So as of right now, I don't see much point in getting tested other than the fact that if I did that, maybe I could help out with research and that sort of stuff.
Well, and I can also see too where like you're thinking of your dad right now, where your dad more than likely, and he kind of said it, he got tested because of you guys. He didn't get tested for his own knowledge. He got tested to see if he was passing it on to you. There's been some studies out there that have said that you could have the recessive gene where he doesn't even have it, and then he could still technically pass it on. But those studies, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of those yet, so it's still to be determined. Yeah, I mean, I guess without getting too personal here, was the plan for not having kids, has that just kind of been your thing from the beginning, or did HD have something to do with that at all in your thought process?
Yeah, so it was kind of, I've always kind of been that way. Never really thought I'd have children. Also, I guess um, the career path I ended up choosing was not a very lucrative career choice, and I just couldn't wrap my head around financially being able to also support a child and all the expenses that go into that. So it just kind of made logical sense. But I mean, every now and then, you get well, it would be cool to have a kid. And I was a sports kid. So, like, go to baseball games or soccer games or football games or something, like be able to see that aspect. But I have plenty of nieces and nephews that I get that from.
That's what I was about to say. You got the nieces and nephews.
So I
You're
guess
fine. You
not
can
nieces,
still do
nephews, cousins. I am only an uncle now to a 2-year-old. So, but
those.
they're young enough to where they feel like nieces and nephews.
They'll be coming. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Has it changed how you think about things like health insurance, financial planning, or anything like that?
yeah. So it really, this is more placating towards, hey, great job by my parents, because they in college, I'd say you're not really privy to life insurance and things of that nature, how it works, especially when you're barely even 20 yet. Why would I be thinking about life insurance? And so they were pretty much like, no, you need to do this. So then once you have it, they can't just take it away from you. So I remember sitting at our couch in college and some lady came in, she took my blood and left, and I was like, we'll get results and you'll know if you get life insurance. I was like, okay, cool. So it's things like that most people my age probably don't think about, or most of my friends I know don't think about. So getting set up like that. One aspect of life is to looking at the benefit packages potential employers have. That as of late has really been big, I guess, for me. And if you can secure something that contributes a decent amount to your 401k or offer a pension plan or things like that, those obviously have huge effect on a lot of people. But the way I've been living life, that hasn't been a big priority for me, but it is kind of something I need to start getting serious about. And that's definitely major things to look into, because, like, yeah, maybe you could not make as much money as you can, but if they have an awesome pension plan that you can guarantee funds, where it's like, hey, you're going to be guaranteed at least $20,000 the rest of your life, every year. okay, why not jump at that opportunity? Yeah, it's weird things like that I didn't really take seriously before, to where it's like I'm getting older, maybe I should start thinking about these things.
Yeah, your dad and I discussed his courage on the podcast and what it's been like watching him, even just my 6 years being here and seeing him kind of knowing it's there, but not really even understanding his story until he hopped on the show. What has it been like watching him attack this? He goes to the education stuff. He's constantly looking for ways to participate in research and treatments. And he did his workout study. Like, what's it been like to be his son and watch him doing those things? And is there any specific moment that stands out for you?
Yeah, so it's real motivating to see, and like I said, we're a joking family, so we're pretty light when it comes to serious topics and stuff. So it's pretty nice to see, hey, even though this is a pretty big thing, it hasn't changed personality wise. You're still the same person. You can still joke around and do all that. Some of the things regarding like courage and stuff, I would say being able to sit there and see your brothers kind of deteriorate and then just be still keep that happy attitude and everything, knowing full well, hey, this could be you at any moment, and not just sitting in a wall of self-pity and things like that. But I'd say probably the biggest thing of courage for him would be simply getting tested, just to try to rule out his three sons and stuff, because probably at the time he was probably in the same mindset of, well, do I really want to know? Do I need to get tested? But it takes a lot of courage to be like, well, I need to do it for others and not just for myself. It didn't turn out the way he wanted, but that's probably, I'd say, the most courageous, what I would consider the most courageous thing that I've seen with regards to this situation.
And the fortunate thing is his number is low, right? His
Yeah.
his number, even though he has it, he's got one of the lowest numbers possible to have it. So, like we talked about before, the late onset, and Eric likes to party. I'm sure you know that. So
Yeah.
he'll be partying until the symptoms kick in for sure. I can tell that.
Yeah. Yeah. But unfortunately, they say alcohol is one of the fastest ways to have symptoms come on, I believe. Stopping your consumption of alcohol could help delay the onset of symptoms. So maybe might need to cut back a little bit on the partying, but not too much. Obviously, you need
Yeah,
to live
every
with
other weekend instead of
Yeah,
every weekend.
every other
Maybe.
weekend's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if you do decide to ever get tested and you find out you do have the gene, do you see yourself participating in these clinical trials that they have with new drugs coming out?
Yeah, I think it would just kind of depend on where things are at with Huntington's disease, what kind of trials they have going on. Do they want people that are gene positive but haven't shown symptoms yet? I could definitely, if I do end up at a state where I get tested, could see myself doing things like that. But with regards to like clinical trials for actual drug treatments and stuff, it just kind of depend on where they're at with everything at that time. I feel like everything's so up in the air. Things get a lot of traction, and then all of a sudden, maybe that's not going to work, and then it goes by the wayside. Just kind of depends where things are at that time. I could see myself, if it is to the point where I'm showing a lot of symptoms and they have something at least somewhat promising, I would definitely be willing to try it.
So we talked a little bit about in some of the education stuff that they've got like brain stem technology where they insert something on your brain. Does that interest you at all? I mean, I think that scares the heck out of me. But
It's
would you be
definitely
open to that?
scary. I feel like that's some sort of headline I've seen Elon Musk trying, or Tesla or something, looking for volunteers. But I don't know. That's definitely scary to me. I don't know if I'd jump in on that one until after maybe other people try it personally. Uh, if that's where they're at the time, maybe I'll try it.
Well, Zach, this has been fun having you, and it's a totally different perspective from your dad's. Obviously, it's still weighs heavy on your mind and on your heart, and it's constantly there. It's a little different not knowing, and I'm sure it's almost relieving at some point. But if somebody out there is listening right now and they want to do something, what do you think that they need to do? Is it just advocating and talking about it? Is there money? Like what should they be doing?
I mean, realistically, I think the best way would be just going to the HDSA website, see kind of what benefit or events are going around in your area, and just going to local events. You'll be able to see the community that's around, all the proceeds go towards HDSA. So just being able to go to events, see what's going on out there, and then just joining that community would realistically be, I would consider, the most important, because then you get involved. It's not just like, oh, throwing money somewhere, don't really know where it's going. Well, going to a walk, yes, you pay to go to the walk, but then you show up and you get to hear other people's stories and learn more about it, instead of just, hey, here's some money, hope it all goes well. So I think getting out there, going to events, going to the gala that's coming up at the end of the year, going, I guess our golf tournament is full
hopefully
now,
going to be an annual thing, right?
yeah,
So it's going to be again next year in June, hopefully.
So hop on these golf tournaments if you like golf. Yeah, and education days. Education days are great because they keep you up to date on kind of what's going on. And they always seem to have someone else there that has a different type of perspective that really just hits home. And you're like, oh, okay, so that's what it's like to live with HD or live with someone with HD. And it just really helps you understand.
All right, last question here. What would you tell someone who may have just found out that HD runs in their family?
It's not the end of the world. Just prepare and everything will be all right. Prepare for a worst case scenario. Be serious about not necessarily end of life, but like retirement and setting yourself up for success. Do some research, get educated on it, but also still live your life. Don't let it control your life. Go out there, go have fun. You can live a completely normal life and never show symptoms, or you could show symptoms by the time you're 30. So don't be afraid to take that vacation with your loved ones now, instead of saying, oh, we can do that in a few years. Just don't be afraid to do things now. Don't live so much on your budget, because that's what I used to do. I used to be like, no, I can't do things. I'm on a budget. I can't. I got to save this money for this. And it's like, well, now experiences are a little bit more important, because you never know when it's going to happen. Don't go crazy by any means. Still just, if you can squeeze it, and go have fun.
And if they need you, they can always call you for a mortgage loan against their house so that they can go and spend more.
Yeah,
right?
definitely. If you need to refinance, take some cash out, go on that cruise, go to Japan, wherever they want to go, just hit me up.
Awesome. Well, Zach, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for sharing your story. And for all you listening out there, if you guys have any questions at all, hop on our website, MidwestFamilyLending.com. You can find Zach's info there. Otherwise, reach out to me and I'll get you connected with Zach as well. Thank you for listening. And as always, stay curious. We'll see you next week on The Lofty Lender.
Yep.